Have you ever stepped outside into your driveway and suddenly realized your car, the one you poured your blood, sweat, and tears into, is just gone? Not stolen by some masked criminal in the middle of the night, not mistakenly towed away, but taken by the spoiled daughter of your entitled neighbor. Yeah, that's the nightmare I went through. And it all began with my Tesla vanishing right before my eyes. You see, I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone pretends to follow the rules, except for one family, Karen and her daughter Brittany. And when I say spoiled, I don't mean your average teenager throwing a tantrum over not getting the latest iPhone. I mean this girl strutted around as if the entire street belonged to her. And her mother? Oh, she encouraged it. Rules don't apply to us. Might as well have been their family slogan. That day, I had parked my Tesla in my driveway like I always do. It's more than just a car to me. It's my pride, my achievement, a symbol of everything I've worked for. I had just finished washing it that morning, leaving it shining under the sunlight, and went inside to grab something to eat. Not even 10 minutes later, I heard the unmistakable roar of an engine that instantly made my stomach drop. I rushed outside, and there it was, my Tesla moving down the street with Brittany behind the wheel. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it wasn't really her. But no, there she was, grinning through the window, waving like she had every right in the world to be driving my car. My jaw hit the floor. I yelled her name, but instead of stopping, she slammed the accelerator. The tires screeched as if she were auditioning for a Fast and Furious movie. I didn't waste another second. I ran straight to Karen's house and pounded on her front door. She opened it casually, sipping on her iced coffee like nothing unusual had happened. When I demanded to know why her daughter had just stolen my Tesla, Karen rolled her eyes and said, "Relax, she's just taking it for a little test drive. Don't be so dramatic." My blood started to boil. A test drive? Does she think this is a dealership? My Tesla isn't some toy for your brat to borrow. That's theft, plain and simple. Karen just smirked at me. Oh please, Brittany deserves nice things. You should feel honored she even wants to drive your car. That's when it hit me, this wasn't some misunderstanding. This was something else entirely. This was war. Waiting for Brittany to return my Tesla felt like an eternity, even though it was probably only 15 minutes. I paced back and forth in my driveway, my hands trembling with anger, trying to comprehend how anyone could feel so entitled that they'd just take someone else's car as if it belonged to them. When she finally came back, she didn't ease in slowly. "No!" she shouted as she slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching and leaving dark skid marks across the pavement. She jumped out of the car as she had just achieved something incredible. "Nice ride," she said with a laugh, flipping her hair. "It handles smoothly, but the acceleration is kind of weak. I'll need something faster when I get my own." I was speechless. My Tesla sat there, still humming from the abuse she'd just put it through. Dust scattered across the once pristine paint. I stepped forward, ready to unleash everything I was feeling. But before I could say a word, Karen walked out of her house, clearly having watched the whole thing unfold from inside. "See?" she said smugly. "No harm done." Brittany was careful. "Careful?" I pointed at the skid marks burned into the street, then at the scratch on the rim of my front tire. "That's not careful. That's reckless." Karen crossed her arms, looking at me like I was the problem. "Oh, don't be ridiculous," she replied. "You men always overreact when it comes to cars. It's just a machine. It's not like she stole jewelry or something valuable." That was it. I told her directly that what Brittany did was theft and I had every right to call the police. Karen's smug expression disappeared instantly, replaced by a sharp scowl. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice but filling it with venom. "You wouldn't dare. Do you even know who we are in this neighborhood? We're respected. If you make a big deal out of this, you'll regret it." That sentence told me everything I needed to know. They weren't just spoiled. They were used to intimidating people into silence. They expected everyone around them to just accept their behavior. I wasn't going to be one of those people. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Karen's eyes widened, her confidence cracking for the first time. Brittany tried to act unfazed, but I saw the flicker of panic cross her face. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "They're never going to believe you." But they did believe me. And when the police car pulled into the cul-de-sac just a few minutes later, Karen's calm, confident attitude finally began to crumble. And that That was just the beginning of everything. As the patrol car entered the neighborhood, it felt like time slowed down. Curtains shifted as curious neighbors peeked outside, eager to witness the unfolding drama. I stood there in my driveway, my Tesla still ticking as it cooled down from its unauthorized ride, while Karen and Brittany stood nearby, whispering urgently to each other as they had just been caught red-handed. The officer, a tall man with a stern expression, stepped out of his car and adjusted his belt. "Who made the call?" he asked. I raised my hand, still holding my phone tightly. Before I could say anything, Karen jumped in. "Officer, this is all just a misunderstanding. My daughter only wanted to see how the car drives. Our neighbor here is overreacting. It wasn't theft, just a harmless spin around the block." The officer turned his attention to me. "Is that correct?" "No, sir," I replied firmly. "She took my car without permission. That's theft, plain and simple, and she even damaged the rim on one of the tires." Karen let out a scoff, rolling her eyes as if I had just told a joke. "Oh, come on. He's exaggerating. You really think a young girl like Brittany would steal something? She's not a criminal. She was just curious. Everyone here knows us." But the officer didn't look convinced. He shifted his gaze toward Brittany. "Did you take the vehicle without permission?" Brittany crossed her arms and tilted her head, wearing that smug, practiced expression teenagers seem to master early. "So what if I did? It's not like he was using it, and besides, rules don't apply to me." The silence that followed felt heavy. The officer's eyebrow twitched, and his jaw visibly tightened. "Excuse me," I said. Brittany repeated slowly, like she was explaining something obvious. "Rules don't apply to me. My mom says so." Karen immediately stepped forward, waving her hands nervously. "What she means is that this doesn't need to become a big issue. She's a minor. No one got hurt, and we're more than happy to just move on from this whole thing." The officer shook his head. "No, ma'am. Taking a vehicle without permission is serious. Minor or not, that's a crime. And her attitude right now isn't helping her situation." Karen's tone turned sharp. "Do you have any idea who we are? We're respected members of this community. If you even think about touching my daughter, I'll make sure you regret it." The officer didn't react to the threat. Instead, he calmly spoke into his radio, then looked directly at Brittany. "Miss, you're coming with me." Karen's scream rang out across the cul-de-sac. The moment those words were spoken, everything changed. Karen's confidence was shattered instantly. She rushed forward and grabbed Brittany's arm. "You can't take her. She hasn't done anything wrong. This is harassment." The officer remained composed. "Ma'am, your daughter admitted to taking the vehicle without permission. That qualifies as unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Step back before you make things worse." Brittany rolled her eyes again, acting like she was still in control. "Whatever. I'll be out in 5 minutes. Jail is for losers, not me." She actually laughed as the officer guided her toward the patrol car, the sound of her bracelets clinking as he placed her hands behind her back. Karen screamed again, stomping her heels against the pavement. "You'll regret this. I'll call the mayor. I'll sue. You can't treat us like this." But for once, no one paid attention to her. Even the neighbors who usually stayed out of everything had come outside. Some stood with their arms crossed, nodding slightly as if to say, "Finally." Someone had stood up to them. A few even whispered to me, "It's about time." They've been making everyone's lives miserable for years. The officer opened the back door of the patrol car and guided Brittany inside. Her confident smile finally began to fade as reality set in. This wasn't a warning. This was real. She pouted, lightly tapping her head against the window. "Mom, do something. They can't do this to me." Karen, her face flushed with anger, turned her attention toward me. "You think you've won? You think you're some kind of hero? This isn't over. We'll ruin you for this." I didn't back down. For the first time since they had moved into the neighborhood, I felt no fear. I simply looked at her and said, "Karen, rules apply to everyone, even your daughter." The officer got into the car and drove away with Brittany in the back seat. Her earlier laughter had disappeared, replaced by silence. The entire cul-de-sac watched as the vehicle disappeared down the street, leaving Karen standing there alone, trembling with anger but completely powerless. By that evening, the story had already spread throughout the neighborhood. Apparently, at the station, Brittany tried using her "rules don't apply to me" line on the officers there as well. Needless to say, it didn't go in her favor. She ended up spending the night in a holding cell, her first real experience with consequences. The next day, Karen went around trying to twist the story in her favor, but it was too late. The truth was already out. Her daughter had been arrested, and everyone knew exactly why. As for my Tesla, aside from the scratched rim and the stress I had gone through, it was fine. But the real satisfaction came from something else entirely. For once, the neighbors who thought they were untouchable finally learned the truth the hard way. When you cross the line, there are consequences. No one gets special treatment. Rules apply to everyone, especially when jail bars are involved. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next crazy Karen story.